Hello, Get Better Faster Nation. I'm Dr. Jason Bradley, and along with my co-host, the one, the only James Chester, and our incredible executive producer, Rachel Bradley, we want to welcome you to another exciting episode of the Get Better Faster podcast. Today, we're joined by a truly remarkable healer who did not find her gift in a textbook. She found it in a decade of suffering. Dr. Cathleen King is a doctor of physical therapy, a mind-body innovator, a mom, and the founder and CEO of Primal Trust Academy and Community. He spent over a decade fighting chronic Lyme disease, mold illness, chronic fatigue syndrome, PTSD, and a host of other conditions that left her bedridden in a dark room. And when conventional medicine had no answers left, she went inside. She unlocked her own healing through neuroplasticity, somatic practices, and nervous system regulation. Then she built a program that's helped thousands of others do the same. Her Primal Trust program is now one of the most recommended recovery systems by leading practitioners treating Lyme, mold illness, long COVID, chronic fatigue, and trauma. Today, we're going to go deep on her brand new Daily Regulate 40-day program, brain retraining, vagus nerve healing, and what it really means to reclaim your health from the inside out. Dr. Kat, my friend, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, the green room was a very entertaining place today. So we all learned quite a bit of stuff, and we took some time to get to know each other a little bit. But part of the program I love the most about the Get Better Faster podcast is the essentials, and that's the origin story. And that's really how we build up this show into what we've done today is really getting to know the practitioners on the other side of the screens and microphones, to where the people out there in the real world can see who you are, how you became who you are, and why you do what you do. And I think that those are some really fun parts of the journalistic approach that Dr. Jason and I do with our guests. But you are a prime example of somebody that didn't have the answers. And I would really like you to take us back to that origin story, the dark room, where you were dealing with mold illness, PTSD, chronic fatigue issues. I think there's some more things, Lyme. There's a whole host of things that you're doing, a cocktail of dysfunction going on in your nervous system. What was the moment you realized that you weren't going to find the answers from the outside? You had to go inside and find them. And how did you start to heal yourself?
Yeah, I love how you phrase this question, that I didn't have the answer. And it seemed like that because I went to all of the best doctors I could find. I read everything I could. I tried all these protocols. And that approach of finding the answer was like a door that just kept getting slammed and slammed. And eventually I didn't have any money left. I couldn't function. I couldn't even afford to try another protocol. And I had to give up on getting well. I had to actually say, you know what? Okay, I'm going to have to learn how to live my best life with this impairment. And so the irony was I gave up trying to fix myself with external solutions. And I decided to try to learn how to live my best life with my condition. And then that unlocked the answers that I did have inside it. It reoriented my whole brain state into a wisdom, intuitive seeking being that realized oh, the answer is in finding the joy of living and recognizing that my nervous system was completely maxed out. So none of these pills and supplements and detox strategies were working. It was just bouncing off me because my system was in a state of resistance. So when I stopped, I literally said, all I can do is really handle laying on the grass with my kids. That's all I could do. And I'm like, I have to be the best mom I can on the grass. And it was like, I found moments of joy by watching the bumblebees, by looking up at the clouds. And I was like, I lived today. I had a good day being completely bedbound, basically. I had a good day. And that unlocked something in me that was really the beginning of my primal trust, my inner wisdom, my inner sense of safety. That was the breadcrumb to lead me out of the condition I was in.
I'm sure Dr. Jason's wheels are turning about what to jump into with you next, but I want to touch on another topic while he prepares himself to jump into the conversation today. People remain sick because of these conditions. And I mean, the analogy that you used there, a door slamming, Like, I want everybody right now that's watching or listening to this or will listen to this in the future, think about how you feel when the door slams. What does that do internally to you to make you feel different? And what happens? Does it make you happy or does it make you upset when something slams a door, whether it's the wind or someone else? Like, it's a visceral feeling that we feel. And if we feel like this is happening to us for our health, and then we go to specialist after specialist, and we're on this merry-go-round system of people that are supposed to have the key to set us free and to be able to unlock us from our dysfunctions and our dysregulation and put us back on a path. Because number one, we paid for it. Number two, we invested our time into it. And number three, we don't have the answers ourselves. So we believe that this person is going to give us the guidance and the pathway to betterment. And that's what you're saying wasn't true. You had to go mind over matter system, and you had to trust the primal instincts inside of you. I think that that's a huge cornerstone for people to understand is if the door keeps slamming and it doesn't feel good and it's loud and it's disruptive, that's not going to make your nervous system chill out. That's not going to make your body start responding to breathing and seeing the sunshine and the bumblebees, like you said, and just like the real quality of time with your kids. And I think that this is a big, big takeaway for so many people out there that watch our show is, damn, like we got to heal the healer.
Yeah. It's the insanity of trying the same thing and expecting a different result, that different doctor, the different protocol. That was what I had to face. And there's a real grief when you have to give up. You feel like, oh my gosh, no one can help me. You're going to have to go through that embodiment, that somatic experience of this path that's supposed to be the way, these authority figures. It's not actually the way. It's like having to recognize that relationship is not working for you and you need to leave. It's the same kind of grief.
I totally relate to that personally. And I know Dr. Rachel is off screen right now, but I'm going to attempt to speak for both of us, although I don't know that that's a smart thing for any husband to do. I'm going to put that out there for the husbands listening. We both have struggled all of our lives. I mean, we didn't know until later in our adult life, but with polyautoimmunities, mold issues, Lyme issues. I mean, throw in some Epstein-Barr virus issues, and basically immune system and nervous system dysregulation. I think that's just a really good way to think about it. And I know that for myself, as a, functional medicine internist, I'm really good at connecting dots and looking for those imbalances. And I think I was saying this in the green room before the show, and diving really deeply into, our clients' cases and connecting dots that no one else can connect. But I think there's a limiting factor. And I think that limiting factor really is helping that nervous system. I think that you said, would you say you recognize that your nervous system was maxed out? I can't tell. I don't know if this is a woman thing, primarily, but we work primarily with women, and the women that find us, their nervous systems are maxed out. I mean, they're just stress baskets, and God bless all of them, and I love all of them, and I want to help all of them, which is why we, refer to your program so much. We found you because we were searching, and we found Primal Trust. I think, and I didn't realize, but I think early in your launch, early in your release of it, I didn't realize how early that was until now that I've, got to know your bio a little bit more. And I feel really privileged that Rachel and I were part of, your early clients and students, and we learned so much. But the thing that you just mentioned that stuck out to me, and I was sold from day one with the one thing that you said, and I think that what you said was, what if this is as good as it gets? That's what I remember hearing. And I think so many people, really struggle with that. I'm sure that you've seen it with your clients and students and patients, whatever word we want to use, where there's, and again, I'm meaning this out of love for everybody, myself included. I'll include myself here. It's easy to become in a victim mindset where it's just, this is my life and it sucks. It doesn't get any better than this. And I hate it, and I'm unhappy, and nobody can help me. And it's just, and I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to feel the same way. But when you said those other words, what if this is as good as it gets? And how can you carve out a good life despite of it? It brought so much peace to me, because I can't tell you, Kat, how many times daily still I walk around saying things like, it could be worse. I mean, it could be worse. And I'm alive today. James will send me notes like, it's a good day, we're breathing and we're upright. I mean, it's it's things like that that really like fuel the fire in me. And it's flipping that victimhood into, I own this. Like even if this is only as good as it gets, I can still have a good life. So my question is, and took me a long time to get there. My question is, I'm sure that in this field, nervous system regulation, I don't know if that, I think James said the chillax system regulation. I mean, whatever we want to talk about it. I'm sure that you see that victim mentality coming to you. And I'm wondering, two things. Number one, do you primarily see it more with women? I'm just curious. And number two, what's your trick or what's your technique to help people flip that around and not be a victim and be able to move forward?
Yeah, this is the hot question. Um, I have to just preface this by saying I was just interviewed by a very big magazine, and the reporter was like, "Don't you realize how you're harming people by telling them to take responsibility for their health when they couldn't, do anything about it? This is harmful to have them go in and do the inner work." And so I'm going to say it this way. I'm going to say what I said to him. I said, I was harming myself way more by staying in that stress response and staying in the blame and the resentment. Yes, as a child, maybe I couldn't choose some of this set up, and maybe I couldn't choose the pathogens that came across my path. But the way I was stuck in blame with the medical system, with my partners, with my family, I was absolutely causing more harm than anything my program was going to do by getting them to take some responsibility for their ability to consciously self-regulate their biology. You have the ability to consciously self-regulate your biology. You're not a victim to your your biochemistry. Generally, you can shift that. And so maybe that means that, so what do I say to people? I would say that, yeah, you might not have been able to fully control the setup, but here you are now with some knowledge. And the idea of coming out of victim consciousness is that you gain more consciousness and more capacity and more skills than you had before. And once you have that opportunity to apply a new skill, you have empowerment. And I'm giving you a skill to choose to shift your biochemistry, and you can choose or not, but you're not a victim to this choice right now. It's a choice.
I think it's important what you're sharing there, but I also believe that the people that were like you come into a lifestyle that feels like you felt there's almost no way out. And, the medical system, the insurance model didn't particularly guide you to where you needed to go. The specialist model didn't particularly guide you to where you needed to go. So, just for my own, this is off the topic a little bit, but on topic.
That's our whole show, by the way.
I'm learning a new language. I'm learning Spanish, and I'm like 77 days into it. But I'm at this point where I feel like I need to go back and start from the beginning. And I think sometimes people, because I want to learn it better, I don't want to advance too quickly. I don't want to like get to the point right now where I feel like it's getting really hard and I haven't grasped onto like the initial like structures and the syntaxes and how things go to get put together to where I can do it with better speed. And I feel like the program almost advances me too quickly. And I'm sure you get people into your ecosystem all the time that are like, all right, I'm already maxed out stressed. Nobody's giving me the answers I want. Now I have the answers and I know what to do, but damn it, how do I get through this? And I know what you've done is you created a 40-day plan for people, but and it's got a high success rate. But how do you take people that are like so darn into it and they want to learn a new language, which is health and recovery, but they want to go back because they aren't getting it good enough and they want to learn it better? Like, how do you manage the human aspect of this, not just the program aspect of it?
Did you want to say something, Jason?
You know what? I was just thinking when James was saying going back to the beginnings of Spanish, I can't tell you how many times I do this with languages, but it reminds me of two things real briefly. Again, off topic, but possibly related. I've been playing guitar since I was 6, but I'm self-taught. I've never taken a lesson ever in my life. And Dr. Rachel downloaded, I don't even know the app. I'm really sorry to say, but it's a really cool app. And it's like learn guitar in like, 258, easy lessons. And I, they don't let you progress in this app without going through the basics. And I thought that the tutorial when I first got into it was really, I mean, like, I'm like, come on, I've been playing since I was 6, I'm in my 50s and, come on. But the interesting thing is in like the second, little coursework, I learned a new chord and I understand something a little bit more. And I thought that was interesting. And it reminded me, having worked with professional athletes that, and I don't know if you guys have ever watched like NBA players when they're practicing, they're not really scrimmaging that much. They're doing layups. They're doing free throws. They're doing like the most basic shots all day, every day, getting in there, not just 10,000, shots, but they're like 50,000 shots. And that's why they're so dang good. And I find it curious, like to go back to the beginning, I think there's probably something there with also the, I don't want to say repetition, but there's some familiarity there. And by going back and revisiting that familiarity, I think it is probably calming to the nervous system to a certain extent. Reinforces the foundation, calming to the nervous system, putting your brain into a better receptive state, and then being able to move forward from there. I don't know if that's where Dr. Cat was going, but I just want to throw that out. Layups and free throws for NBA players.
I love it. Yeah, I want to go in a couple directions. So I'm going to answer this the more straightforward way first. As far as like, if you're feeling like you're progressing too quickly, one of the things I've learned is that I have to have different types of programs for different types of folks. So I have a comprehensive program. I now have this simplified program. We have this deep dive trauma inner work program. And what I usually say to people is if they're like you, or you're like, oh my gosh, this is too much, I say, listen, podcast style, because your consciousness is getting new ideas and a new framework, and you don't have to do anything. You're just, we are the product of what we are paying attention to over time as you marinate, just by listening, go for walks. And when you're in your car, listen to what I have to say. Forget about the homework, just podcast style, and know that you're learning. And the second thing I want to say is that what keeps people from doing this work is two things. One, that they don't believe that it will work for them. And two, they're afraid to get well unconsciously because of what's on the other side. And so I have to really carefully teeter both of these things. And so the way that I do that is I really set up the program to speak to the rational mind that needs the science, the like actual biology of why this isn't in your head and why it's a cellular dysfunction that's actually happening because of the nervous system. But I'm also planting seeds about what's on the other side that I know there's also often an unconscious resistance to being fully well, being able to be fully functional, fully responsible, and honestly, probably getting them back into the lifestyle that caused their nervous system to crash in the first place. There's a part that's like, I don't want to like run myself over with the bus every day again, like I was when I was working 60-hour weeks and saying yes to everybody. So I'm also having to like work with the psyche carefully. And so when you're just listening podcast style, you're getting the science that's helping to convince the rational mind, but I'm also dropping the psychology to help uproot the underlying fears of actually being fully functioning again.
Yeah, no, I totally hear that. And it's interesting. You said this rational brain. And I want to go to, again, I'm really curious about this interview that you did with this major magazine. I want to know more about that. I'm not going to ask what magazine it is because you didn't mention it, but I can't wait for you to tell me what it is. But at any rate, I think it's interesting because a lot of our clients come to us, and I don't know how to explain this, but you're a doctor, I'm a doctor, there's lots of doctors out there. And to a certain extent, when you're going through getting your doctorate degree, you are indoctrinated. I'm just going to throw that word out there. And part of the indoctrination, especially in conventional medicine, is that there is a God complex instilled in those doctors. And before everybody jumps in and like, yeah, that doctor thinks he's a god and this and that, but let me explain what the rationale for it, and then we'll unpack it for just a second, and I'll turn it right back over. When you're having, a surgery and your surgeon has to make a life or death decision in nanoseconds, you don't want them questioning themselves. You want them to be absolutely sure about what they know and what to do. Like you want that God complex to a certain extent. And it works well in that situation. The problem is when people go to conventional medical providers, I won't pick on any single type, but I'll just put them all in a basket. When people go to conventional medical providers and they go with complex symptoms that don't fit into a box, and remember, guys, I know we all want the Marcus Welby MD that's gonna, sit back and figure stuff out and be your buddy and be your friend and gonna love you and your family and see you through it. But that's not the way doctors are trained anymore. It is literally, how quick can I get to a diagnosis? So give me your list of symptoms. I'm going to do, maybe I run some crappy labs. I'm going to do a drop down menu to a diagnosis that fits that cluster of symptoms to the best of my ability in 6.5 minutes. And then that's going to open up a new drop down menu that tells me what drug, procedure, or referral I need to follow through on. And that's it. That's the depth of education. I know we all want it to be more, but that's why we are our tiny little 5% of the population of the world consumes 80% of the world's pharmaceuticals, and yet we are this literally, arguably, this one of the sickest countries, on the planet. Certainly, the sickest, most drug country on the planet. The reason I'm bringing all that up is because our clients, and I'm sure Dr. Kat, you feel the same way. They find us, and they've been told they're crazy. But let me explain. They've gone to these doctors and these specialists, and the specialists have this idea that I'm a god and I know everything. And if I can't figure it out, it's not my fault. It's your fault. And you must have a psychiatric condition. So here's the drug of the day. Whatever, I don't know what they prescribe these days, but I'm sure it's not Paxil and Prozac and Wellbutrin anymore. I'm sure there's, harder hitting new drugs that mess up the neurotransmitters just as much, if not more. But my point that I'm making is there is literally like a fault that's given to people. And what's really sad to me, and again, I work mostly with women, Dr. Rachel and I do, their husbands unfortunately are sold that as well. Their husbands are by the same doctors. There's nothing really wrong with you. It's in your brain. You just need to take an anti-anxiety agent, and that'll, make you apathetic, and you're still going to be anxious and worried and stressed, but at least you won't feel it as much. And then their husbands, they start to blame their spouses. It's a really tough situation to take that human being that has struggled and gone through every specialist, every doctor. I mean, they're trying just to be left with, it's all in your head. And I think what's interesting is, to a certain extent, it kind of is in their head, but not in the way that they're saying. It's their nervous system, it's vagal nerve tone, it's learning regulation, things that I was never taught really until Dr. Rachel started investigating nervous system regulation. But anyway, that was a big unpacking of why people are told that it's in their head, like they're crazy, and why they're really left, hopeless, helpless. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I always share the story that I had a therapist, about 7 years in my journey. And he was like, I really think that about 80% of your Lyme symptoms would go away if you would focus on unpacking your trauma and regulating your nervous system. I flipped him off. I said, F you. And I was that person. I was absolutely the person you're saying, which is, it was humiliating for me to say, oh, I'm going to work on my nervous system for my chronic illness, because my in-laws, my husband, they were all like, it's in your head. And so we are, unfortunately, that's one of the biggest one of the biggest boulders in the way of healing, is exactly what you're saying. And so for me, I wasn't able to make this shift until I learned the science of the cell danger response by Dr. Robert Naviaux, the science of the polyvagal theory, the science of limbic system impairment. I had to appeal to the scientist in me to get past the humiliation of doing self-regulation practices. And fortunately, the science is there, you guys. That's the good news. When you realize that this is, yes, there is a psychological aspect to this, but again, it's almost like the psychology is perpetuating the thing that got triggered that set your immune system over the edge, meaning you probably grew up in some type of environment where your immune system capacity for regulation was not optimal. Okay. And then you get these exposures, the mold, the Lyme, the parasites, the digestive stuff. And you're somebody who learned to function by working hard, by
Mhm.
being a people pleaser, by whatever. These are things our society rewards. So it's not like a psychological problem. You are a product of a system that says go against yourself to stay connected and stay loved. And then your immune system can't keep up. And eventually
Mhm.
there is a tipping point, and it's not a psychological problem. But what happens is when you now can't do what you need to do to function, you get stressed out because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm losing my function. I can't work 60 hours a week. I can't do this. I can't do that. That's the psychological quote problem, is that you're just not able to keep up with the
Mhm.
coping strategies of survival and success.
I think you're making a good point with so much of this. And a big part of doing a podcast, as you said, think about in podcast form how you can like learn how to do a program and how you can stick with it is think about listening to a podcast, which I think is really fun to think about because so many times people get overwhelmed with
Mhm.
the concept. But I also like to slow down to speed up with the production that we do here. So I think I have to go back a little bit and turn the back to a couple chapters because I think we're like way too far into the interview without getting some foundation.
Great.
Um, how did you get all of these things? The Lyme, the PTSD, the mold illness, like how did all this like stack up
Yeah.
onto you to make you think that you're crazy?
Yeah, it felt like bad
Mm,
luck. It really did. But how did I get all these things? My environment, my immune system, I'll say, was in a state of confusion, probably since I
mm,
was little, meaning it's overactive. The immune system is so tied to our stress
Mhm.
response, to our limbic system, to the way we're self regulating. And when you are a chronic overfunctioning person, which looks like a successful person, that chronic overfunctioning basically dials down the intelligence of your immune system. Meaning it's going to let certain pathogens flourish in the body that shouldn't, and it's going to get overactive in other ways that is also not optimal. So it's like this confused response. I just call it like an overactive immune confused response. And it all has to do with the regulatory functions of the autonomic nervous system. So how did this happen to me? I was someone who was always like pedal to the metal my
Mhm.
whole life to survive, to first get out of severe trauma, dysfunction, and then to be a type A, straight A student, to a doctorate degree, to running a clinic. I didn't let myself rest and digest or feel anything. So my immune system couldn't get the discernment online to fight invaders, to get the detoxification signaling going of it's time to rest and detox. I never gave myself the space to do that. And so, unfortunately, this is the kind of
Mm.
person who is the setup for Lyme and mold and long COVID. It's just a system that doesn't have the
Mm.
capacity to deal with the normal toxins and invaders that we are all getting. It's you're in overload, focusing on other things, which is being successful or being loved in a way that's not serving you.
That's totally true. And I'm reminded often of a book that I read many, many years ago, probably 25 years ago. And I do not know how to pronounce the author's name, but I think her last name is Sarer. I can't say that name right, Pamela Sarer. But it's called The 3 Day Energy Fast. And I remember a key point in that where just in her intro to the book where she said she was a successful journalist in New York and was, working like 5 million hours a week. And, like you said, I mean, there are these workaholism is not necessarily looked or frowned upon in
Mhm.
America. And I didn't get enough sleep and I live on caffeine and all, like whatever that mojo is. I've been there myself. And Sarer said in that book, I had to take a break and heal myself from having to be successful in that way. And I thought it was a really profound statement because at the time, I've been in practice for 26 years. So this was probably like in my first year or so of practice, and I'm grinding. Like all I'm doing is waking up at 6 and I'm in clinic till like 10 p.m. And I mean, I was grinding. And I didn't know what to do with it, and I actually probably didn't know what to do with it until maybe 5 or 10 years ago. And I now understand. I mean, it sat with me all these years, but it's a really a profound concept if we think about it, and it's not one that is given a lot of credibility in our, overslept, underslept, overworked, overtaxed, and underappreciated American lifestyle. The other thing I wanted to bring, so thank you. It reminded me of that book, 3-Day Energy Fast. The other thing I wanted to just talk about, coming back to the scientist in me, because I am very left-brained, and I pride myself to a certain extent of being left-brained. I think it serves me well in what I do with internal medicine. But cortisol, everybody's heard of cortisol, the stress hormone. I don't know if everybody has, but it's a pretty common one that people talk about. And, when I was first in practice, people would come to me and say, I got to reduce my cortisol. What supplement can I take to reduce my cortisol? What supplement? I mean, it's always a supplement or a drug. Like, what can I do? And I kind of bought into that. Like, oh, if you have too much cortisol, it's causing stress. I mean, I want you to think about the backwards thinking here. Now I realize, not too many years in, but I realized that cortisol is released because of stress. It doesn't cause stress. It's released because of stress. And the only way to bring your cortisol down is to, learn how to, manage your stress. I used to say reduce stress, but I think manage is maybe a better word. And just for our listeners that are maybe a little bit left-brained, if we think about cortisol, it's an adrenal hormone. It is released during stress, but there are other hormones that are released during stress from the adrenals as well, and they're corticosteroids. And all of these corticosteroids, all these adrenal hormones, they all function to do they function to do a lot of things, but one of the effects is that they literally suppress the immune system. We see this in drugs that we recommend, in prednisones. How does prednisone work so well for pain and inflammation? Well, it suppresses the immune system. In the biologics that people are prescribed, I won't name them, but these biologics that are on TV, and they're like, everybody's like riding their bikes in the sun on the beach and having a great life, and it's like this stuff's going to kill you if you take it. You're going to get tuberculosis. You shouldn't get tuberculosis, but you're probably going to. And I'm being a little hyperbolic there, but my point that I'm making is, we build drugs, effective drugs, that are concentrations of adrenocorticotropic hormones. I mean, they're steroids. And of course, when you're stressed and releasing endogenously within your body, when you're releasing those hormones all the time, besides just being stressed all the time, now your nervous system is wonked out, your immune system is wonked out. Yeah. And I think that's why so many people have not just hypervigilant immune systems, but nervous systems, but hypervigilant immune systems as well. And I think that's why, at least I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This is all Bradley theory at this point, that people that have, whether it's adverse childhood experiences, PTSD, whatever that trauma is, that sets the stage that we've learned to fight through. Because Kat, you're a fighter. James, I know your backstory. You're a fighter. Rachel's a fighter. I'm a fighter. And those skills that we learned to fight through it served us until it didn't, until our immune systems crash, and until we have polyautoimmunity, and until we're now susceptible toward a whole bunch of COVIDs and viruses. And like you said, stuff that molds, stuff that we're exposed to all day, every day, everybody is. It's not really bad luck, like you mentioned. It's really a wonked out immune system without the right structure for regulation. And I'd love for you to validate me, but please feel free to refute my theory as well.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. And one of the things I think is interesting is we're looking at kids getting diagnosed with autoimmune disease at like skyrocketing rates. And just think about your friends, like 10, 15 years ago, the amount of your friends that were sick compared to now, what's going on? And so, yeah, we used to talk about adverse childhood experiences and trauma, but our lifestyle with these constant stimulation is the same thing as being in an environment where you have to be vigilant because mom or dad is drunk. This is the same vigilance now. We are being bombarded and checking and checking and checking. It is the same. It's the same. So it doesn't take an adverse childhood event anymore to, throw the dials of the immune system off. It's the constant being on and available and responding and planning and anticipating where the system doesn't get to settle. And so, yes, those stress hormones are just surging through all of us.
And James, I want to pass it over to you too, but I will say yes to all that. I love and hate my devices. The other thing too is when we were all kids, TV was different. I mean, I'm not saying people should or should not watch TV. I try to consume as little as possible. James doesn't even own a television. And it's we're all, James and I are both journalists as well, as being, in the fields that we're in. And ultimately the 24-hour news cycle is scare, fear, and or drug breakthrough, scare, fear, drug breakthrough. And it's a really interesting cycle that we see, and we're bombarded with that as well. So, and that's just not even on our phones. That's just if you're watching Wheel of Fortune at night and a commercial comes on for how bad the world's going to fall apart tomorrow. So it's just interesting. James, go ahead.
Yeah. As you guys have been, going back and forth about why, the individual, I call it the, what is it? The last straw breaks the camel's back, scenarios, is we could share last straw that breaks the camel back scenarios. And I think when people are dealing with something from adverse effects to feel like they're not good enough, they're broken. I have to live up to the standard for the American workload. I have to live up to the standard for being a producer for my kids or my partner. Like we're taking these things on top of these things. And that's, I was at breakfast today and I made a pact with myself this morning, and I've added some layers onto it since you guys have been going back and forth about these straws that break the humans back, and that makes people entrenched with these things that they don't know how to get out of. And from now forward, no more cell phone at meals for me. And Jason's been around me enough that I'll work seriously until my thumbs fall off, whether I'm sending direct messages to get business, whether I'm responding to emails. I'll send messages at red lights. Like, once again, no more messages at red lights. And I'm just making this public declaration so everybody can hear these things. I'm not going to check my cell phone anymore before 9:45 a.m. I'm going to have it set up to where no messages can come through until then, and no emails will be checked before noon. And I always told Jason, like, the best way that I co-regulate my life is I don't want people to talk to me before 10 a.m. because I have to have some time to myself to rest and digest and to, do meditation and breath work and journal and do yoga and enjoy the first rays of sun and to have some balance to my life. But lately, Jason has also realized that I've been peaked out stress, and I've been like overwhelmed and like unregulated and angry almost and frustrated and pushing everybody around me with elbows and knees. And I mean, I've been like really hard to handle lately because I don't have enough time to myself, and I'm running multiple things at the same time. And I think that this is a great takeaway for people that we're talking to within this format is, hey, I'm just like you. Hey, Dr. Kat's just like you. Hey, Dr. Jason's just like you. We have our own shit. And we have to start to compartmentalize when we are available, when we're not available, when we can best organize our thoughts and behaviors to where we're good for ourselves and others. Because if not, I don't work out. I gain weight. I'm frustrated. I want to make, myself the exception to everything because I want an out. And I think that when people listen to me, they can identify with them damn selves, because I told Dr. Jason yesterday when we were going back with each other, we're both mirrors to each other, man. Like who he sees is who I am, and who I sees is who he is. So like, I think that these things are like, they're a team thing, but it's also a personal thing. And I do have a question here. I know Jason's got his hand up and I want to pass it back to him, but Kat, I got to focus on you for a moment. You say you got a high success rate with people that go through your 40-day program. You say you have a couple different courses now. What's the commonality of the person that doesn't succeed?
It's the person who's not wanting to let others off the hook, and they're not wanting to choose themselves. What you just described with the phone and your schedule is you choosing yourself. When we have this underlying deep stress response of I have to throw myself under the bus to be loved and to be safe, and I'm not willing to give up that connection, you don't heal. When you're not willing to let go of the blame of what has happened, your immune system stays overreactive to things as well as, as above, so below, as within, so without. Those two things are so important for that immune regulation of discernment of self versus other, self-care, self-need, blame, and then like the blaming and the anger. That is a huge, and it's victim. So that would be it in a nutshell.
I know Dr. Jason wants to jump in, and thank you
It's
for
okay.
sharing that.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that what James is saying resonates with me very personally, because I know James walks the walk. He doesn't just talk the talk. I've traveled with this man. He's my brother. I love him. We've known each other for a very long time. We're there personally for each other. We're there professionally for each other, and we are mirrors. And when we travel together, now Rachel and I too, because we are now, mirroring him. But when we first started traveling together, he brings a whole suitcase full of self-care stuff. Like he has a whole extra suitcase that this man packs. And he literally is, when we're sharing space, in, whatever Airbnb or wherever we're staying, he's like, don't bother me till 10 a.m. Don't like nothing. And he sets that hard line. And I know over the last couple of days, this is our public therapy. So thank you very much, Kat. I appreciate it.
Yep.
I have been texting my brother that I know that about at like 6:45 in the morning, because guess what? I get up super early and I'm like, I'm ready to go. Let's go.
Yeah.
And you're time zone ahead of me, by the way.
And
too.
I'm a time zone ahead of him too. So I mean, it's it's a recalibration for sure. And I appreciate that. Anyway, thank you. The other thing I wanted to say is I'm gonna bring something up that I hope I'm gonna quote some lyrics because I love music, and there's a word in here I want to unpack a little bit, because I think it's what we're talking about, and it's a word that I use all the time. But anyway, I'm a huge Arcade Fire fan, and there's a song called Lightning, and I don't know if it's Lightning 1 or Lightning 2. They have a bunch of Lightning songs. But he says, we were born in paradise beneath a poison sky. I already think that that's an interesting line in itself. Under a bad sign, the micro-age of Gemini. And then this is the word, and we're still unlearning. I like that word, unlearning, but tires are burning in Rodeo Drive, right? That we've been beat down and broken, but now we can testify. And when I hear those lyrics, I almost am brought to tears when I hear that song, because without like airing all my dirty laundry, I mean, I had a really shitty childhood. I had really bad parents that did some really bad things. And I'm just going to leave it there. And, I had to survive, like we talked about, and I had to learn how to fight through. And I think it's, my biggest struggle in life is learning to not fight anymore.
Yeah.
That everything's okay. I have a great wife. I have great daughters. I have a great family. I have a great career. There's so much positive. I have great people around me, like James, and we've gone out of our way to like cut people out that are, blasting us with negativity all the time. And yet at the same time, there's an unlearning to it. Like it's unlearning everything. One of our good friends, Alex Sharfin, said everything that brought you up to this point in life is great, but it's probably not what you need for the next part of your life. And it's such a hard concept because it's so easy to fall into those patterns. Yeah. I'd love to hear you speak on unlearning and what that means, sounds like within the Primal Trust family.
Yeah. I love this topic, and we are all still unlearning, including me, but I would say it this way. When you're getting up at 6:45 a.m. and you're going right to texting, if you could say, I'm harming myself right now by doing this. Because we are so used to pushing to get out of those situations. I know, just like you, I had to become a fighter to elevate out of a space. We did have to develop a fight and a go. But now our society is matching that fight with an easy way of just staying on. And so I've had to say to myself, okay, when I just booked 5 calls in a row, I just harmed myself, Kat.
Mm-hmm.
This little girl needs to hear inside of me. I am now bulldozing over myself the same way that things were bulldozed, where I was pushed into situations beyond my comfort as a child. And so it starts with radical self-honesty about the self-harm. It's that reporter was like, oh, but you're asking them to be responsible. I'm like, yeah, for how they're harming themselves by sitting there and ruminating about all the negative things they just, that conversation or saying yes when they mean no. These are ways where it starts with deep self-acknowledgement. Like, oh, I made this goal of not, and I know, like, okay, I'm not going to get on my cell phone until 9 a.m. But what am I doing? Because half my team is in London. Oh, what if they need something? Harming myself, going against myself, throwing myself under the bus.
Mhm.
This radical self-honesty is a big part. It is the most important part. Like, you can learn all the tools on the planet. In fact, a lot of people come into my program and they learn a lot of tools and they're like, but I didn't get better. I'm like, well, tell me more about your lifestyle. Well, they're using their tools again, like the gun is to their head. Same thing, like just adding it to my to-do list.
Mm.
They're not actually giving themselves that ease that James is doing in the morning, like that self-love. They're just adding more tools to their day, which is, perpetuating the problem. So
I love
Go ahead,
I love
Jay.
that you shared that. I think that everybody should just like stop right now for 30 seconds and take out a pen and paper and go back and replay what Dr. Kat just said and listen to it 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, how many ever times you have to in order to understand that lesson. Because I feel like this ethereal feeling in me right now where I have this somatic response where the light in me is just pouring out. And I feel like this levity in my soul where the hair on my arms is standing up. And I feel like this really affect because these are things that people don't necessarily discuss openly and they don't tell people about why they need to like not do stuff. They just talk about why they did what they did to get to where they are.
Mhm.
And I think that this whole episode is very healing for not only us as the hosts, but I think also for you as the guest. But not only that, the people that listen to what we do, which we're getting millions of downloads now and millions of listens and millions of views. So I think that that's really like very important for people to understand how cumbersome life can be if you're always on call. And I hate the fact that somebody has access to me 24 hours a day. And a lot of times I just want to put up 2 middle fingers and tell them to fuck off. I do. I just want to be like, you don't get access to me anymore. Done deal. Day's over. Pack it in, leave. You're not allowed anymore. And I think that that's a big part about who we become today is people think that they're so damn important that we have this damn thing in our pocket or your purse or in your car that they have access to you whenever they want to, however they want to, and they expect for you to respond back to them within 33 seconds. If you don't, you're a bad person and you're not standing up to your end of the deal, which is to respond back to them the way that they want you to be in their life. So I think that people need to unpack what you said. Go back and replay this thing a dozen times if they have to and realize where their dysfunctions are because they're not going to get to the next place unless they start taking some of these things seriously and they won't heal. That's why I was really curious about your program, why it's so effective. Number one, which I think is amazing. But number two, the ones that suck and fail, why are they? And it's because of these things that they don't know how to like give themselves the white space to be good humans to themselves. And if you're not doing that, nobody's going to give you the tools that are going to like make you learn Spanish in 75 days. Like it's just not going to work. So thank you so much for doing that. And I know Jason's chomping at the bit and I want to get over to Dr. Jason, but I have one more like significant thing that we don't talk about on the show. We always try to make the big bad boogie monster of the medicine. We always try to make like big pharma and big box medicine and diagnosis and insurance like evil empire. But there's things that people get and they don't go that path. They smoke weed and they drink alcohol. How do you deal with people to cope with those things that are in their daily grind?
Yeah.
Or their coffee addictions? How do you deal with people that are dealing with these things and helping tear back the layers to where they actually can focus on the things that are presented to you?
Yeah, it's good. It's such a good point because there really is kind of a couple of main archetypes. There's the overachiever, high functioning, and then there's the numbing out path. Both of these need to develop a skill called interoceptive awareness, which is through somatic practices, vagal toning and somatic practices. So the tools are kind of like this. They build the capacity for awareness so that you're like, oh, here's me going to my drug to numb out, or here's me going to my drug to text someone. So, in order to have change, you've got to become somatically aware of how you are harming yourself. And that's really where the tools come in. So, it doesn't really matter what the coping strategy is, it is a form of harm, and it's a form of keeping your energy field from recalibrating, rebalancing, etc. So, I actually don't get into the weeds so much of like, are you an addict or are you an overfunctioner? It's more like these are the tools that you need to do to sit with yourself and sit with some discomfort and practice basic nervous system regulation. And I know whatever their out of balance behaviors are going to become more conscious to them. And then we get back to that choice point. They're all going to have the same choice point, whether it's the drugs or the phone, which is arguably the phone might be more addictive. And it's the same of choosing what is in alignment for me. And now having this somatic awareness through a part of our brain called our insula that starts to light up when you do these practices, which is your gut instinct. It's your truth teller of like, oh, I just went against myself when I chose to do that. If you can't feel that, you're not going to change an addiction. You're not going to change your behavior.
I'm going to jump in real fast.
Please do.
This is hitting home with me.
Otherwise, I'll keep going.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I've had drinking problems. I've had weed smoking problems. I've had pill addiction problems. I've gone through it. I mean, for my coping, I've had caffeine addiction. I'm off of all of that except for a little tea that I drink through the day. And I'm really happy about that. You know, I mean, it took a lot for me to figure that out. And I really think, like I said, kind of sponging off Dr. Rachel, who went through Primal Trust program, and learning what I learned from you through that program, through her, I think it actually helped me quite a bit. And it's interesting because I don't think it did address like the actual act of drinking or smoking weed or doing, you know, like whatever it is, whatever the things were, the coping mechanisms. I think that's super interesting. So yeah, I agree with you. I have a question. I want to go back to my early morning, like jumping on and attending to business. Yeah. When I do it, I hear you and others and Rachel saying things, and James, saying things like, hey, how about you get some first morning light? And I let the dog, so before I don't just wake up and do this. I let the dogs out. I go outside. I do like, there's things that I do, but it's maybe like 30 minutes, you know, it's not like hours, and I could do a whole lot more, but anyway, I'm not going to shoulda, coulda, woulda, on that. It's interesting because I'm going to tell you I'm the laziest type A person that you're ever going to meet. I get a bunch done, and I make a joke that I get more work done before most people wake up, but it's not because I want to keep working. It's because when Rachel wakes up, I don't really want to work anymore. Like I just want to get my work out of the way and be done with it, and then goof off all day and enjoy myself all day. So I'm questioning my modus operandi here. I'm very aware of it, but having tried it in different ways, where I tried the James Chester method, where I wait till 10 o'clock, and maybe we're doing hits and going on, you know, walks or runs or getting to the gym, or doing our I do some conscious breathing, but even more of it in meditation. And Rachel and I certainly do an alignment, but typically, because I'm trying to get I call it tactical work done, my stuff that has to get done for the day, I try to get that done before 7:30 a.m. And I don't really necessarily expect anybody to like respond by 7:30 a.m. I just want to get my stuff out. And then if it trickles in, that's great. And otherwise I'll tend to it the next morning. I feel like it works well for me. I know that it doesn't work well for necessarily other people, but it works well for me. I feel less stressed than ever knowing that that's my way that I work. But at the same time, I hear, don't do that. Stay off your phone, stay off screens, spend, an hour or two, recalibrating or whatever it takes. I'd love to hear, not that you need to psychoanalyze me or help me right now, but I'd love to hear your take on that, because I think there's probably other people out there listening that are very similar.
Yeah, this is a good question. So there's a few things here. A lot of people who get up and start working, they're basically kind of working all day. If you are if you're truly getting into a rest and digest later, then maybe it's not the worst thing for you. However, optimally, what would be optimal? Optimal is, yes, getting that red light, the sunlight in the morning, getting movement in the morning, because that cortisol shift in your body, the way that your muscles are working, sets your whole system, your whole biorhythm. So there's some optimal things. But the thing I would be most concerned with is if you're, rushing to get your work done as a way of almost, I'm going to say closing a dopamine loop, because some people need to get it done because they're trying to like create an internal sense of safety, which I call like a closing this dopamine loop. That is something that could be on the addictive pathway, and it could be something to practice allowing undone things while enjoying your morning and getting to like as a progression. So maybe you've gotten to this place where you close those dopamine loops and now you're like free to play, and you actually do play. If you play, great. You're one step ahead of the person who's starting first thing in the morning and still exercising or working all day long. You need to have periods of activity and rest throughout the day. So I don't know what the rest of your day is, but I would say as an advanced practice, and I know this because I'm similarly wired, the closing of the loop is another layer of conscious mastery for me as well. And it's something that I feel spoken to about as my next stage. Yeah.
Dr. Kat, I'm so like in this groove with you. Like, I get it. I get what you're saying. It's interesting. I mentioned Dr. Denham Slade, who is over there in Utah with you, same town and everything. I have to introduce you guys.
Yeah,
you're both two of the coolest people that I know, and you're like almost neighbors, So
Yeah,
I gotta connect you guys. But he has his core book that's out there, and the core assessment that people can take to kind of understand their, who are they. C is for caring and compassionate. O, I'm not sure what the O stands for, but the optimist, the idealist. R is the result-oriented resolver, like getting resolution. And the E is, I can't remember what it stands for, but it's basically wanting to do it the right way the first time around. And I am dominantly an E, and then secondarily an R. And what that means is I like to do things the right way. I don't want to come back to it. I like to have one conversation and just that's the way it is. And I think Dr. Slade said, the way my brain works is if people would just do it the way that I think it should be done, it would just be great. And yeah, right. And then the R, yeah, I know. R, the resolver part of me is like, I just want to have resolve it. So it is that closing of that dopamine loop. I'm totally aware of that. And I do think it would be a good practice for me. I'm sure many of our listeners, if you're identifying with this, to maybe, think about what that looks like. What could it look like to just flip flop? Because I get done with most of my work by 7:30, 7:45, and then I take a few hours. What if I took that few hours first and then did my closing of my loops? I don't know. Go ahead, James.
Well, I think a lot of what we're discussing is situational.
Sure.
And I think it's seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we evolve. Like you said, Alex Sharfin's advice, the things that you did here won't get you to where you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think there's seasons that you should grind, like you were saying when you first got into practice, Jason. And I think that there's moments like that you have to like eclipse, and then you peak out, and then you're like, well, what's the next evolution of my life? Well, I'm not going to do that shit anymore because that sucked. That burned me out. I put on weight. I became annoying. Like everybody around me was like, why is this guy working so hard? Can he just take a breath? And you don't become that attractive character that we want to become. And I think like that's really a part of this too, is for people to take that personal inventory, like Dr. Kat's saying too, is how do other people look at you? Like, I think that that's a really important, smart thing for people to think about. What is the perception of others about you? And that's the thing that most people hold their tongue about. But I think that would help a lot more people if people just said, hey, I think you're being kind of a dictator in my life. Cool it. I have other things to do besides thinking about what you want. And I think that if people actually had those open conversations, it might hurt some feelings, but it might liberate people too. And I think it's the most important thing is you have that conversation with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Can I give myself some some time not to be grieving about if I don't finish my stuff before Rachel gets up? Like, how would my life be like for the next 30 days if I just allowed myself to have more morning time and then work time and then cycle through that? Because where you are today, what you're doing isn't getting you where you want to go. So I think these are really introspective things that we have to like really take counsel for ourselves, but also think about how we show up for other people because of our behaviors. So I think that this is really cool. I know that I have to get back on with Kat because I feel like we spent a lot of times like unpacking our own shit today, Jason. So Kat,
this is my therapy. So I mean, thank you.
How do people find you generally? Because I know that you work a method where you do a one-to-many and not so much one-to-one, but how do people find you? And was it because you were great at marketing? Was it because you had a great launch? Like what happened? How did people start to like understand that Kat King's gonna like turn the key to set them free?
This is such a good question. I am the most lucky entrepreneur on the planet, meaning I had zero business training. We have a very successful, large 7-figure business. And right now we're at, 5,600 members in my community.
Wow.
57,
That's awesome.
58. I don't even know. How did that happen? I am somebody who loves human psychology and I love connecting with people. And I was in a lot of forums early on with people in chronic illness, and I was just studying them. I'm like, how do they think? How are they, why are they doing this? And when I started to heal, I just started working with people like for whatever they could pay me or nothing at all. And I'm like, I'm just experimenting here. Like, this is working for me. Is it working for you? And they started getting better. And so they were involved in these forums and they told people about me. And I just worked with I said yes to like everyone. And so I spent a lot of time personally in this niche with the people on ground zero, giving them my time, doing voicemails in the forum. I never spent an ounce on advertising till 1 year ago. Actually, was my first ad. And we still don't even I think we spend like $2,000 a month or something. I don't actually know. We're not even doing ads right now. So like, it's not ads. They just word of mouth. And then I was like, oh, I can't coach all these people. I'm just going to do a group of 15 women. And then they told their friends, and it just was results. I'm all about results, and I'm all about constantly new iterations. So I've made, 4 iterations of my level 1 now. I've made 4 iterations of my level 2 course. I constantly change based on conversations like this. Like, oh, I need to add this piece in there. I need to add that. So I think that I am evolving as honestly the consciousness around this world is evolving with nervous system and health. And I'm just right there in it. It's not like a program that stays still. Like I'm absorbing and teaching, and I teach medical providers for free. So I have a whole practitioner program. We've got 2,000 medical providers. Awesome. I show up for free. I teach them all every month, everything I know, because I know they need to understand it. So I'm also very much into service. I don't know. I just talk about this stuff everywhere, and I study people, and I'm like studying you two. And I'm like, oh, what can I learn from them? And how would I help them? So I don't know. It's just who I am. It's my mission, and it's working out.
Well, it's encouraging once again, because I know that we don't just interview professionals and healers. We talk to the audience. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there's audience out there that are listening to us. And I'm like, you know what? If I could just get that one thing going in my life, I wouldn't have to go work this shitty job again. Mm-hmm. Or if I could just get that one solution in my life to build the attraction that I want for this course that I've always dreamed of doing, well, how could I do that? And I think the biggest takeaway there is in chiropractic, Dr. Jason Bradley is a chiropractor. I don't know if you knew this, mm-hmm. but I come from the chiropractic space. I'm not a chiropractor, but I've interviewed 1,400 of them in the past 8.5 years. And I've made 2 documentaries on the profession. I worked in a clinic for 6 years. So I love chiropractic. I love the philosophy of chiropractic. I love the methods of chiropractic. I love that the body needs nothing extra in it. It needs no interference. When you clear the interference, the body self-heals and self-regulates. So everything you're talking about is chiropractic philosophy. Mm-hmm. And I love bringing it home to that. Mm-hmm. But there's so many people out there that are like, if I could just find this one thing, I wouldn't have to like feel like I don't have it. So mm-hmm. I feel like you found that. You mm-hmm. found that like that it. Yeah. And that it moment that now you have the law of attraction to where you just gave enough out and now it all comes back. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there just like that. They're like, damn, I give so much every day. How can I get this like attraction mm-hmm. engine to turn on for me? But I think the thing that you said there that I want to bring it back full circle on is In chiropractic, there used to be this method of payment called box on the wall, and they would take care of people all day long, and you'd put whatever you could into that box, whether it was nothing or whether it was a great
Mm.
sum. Every day you would go by on that box on the wall, and you would put something in for the exchange for the ability to get seen by that practitioner. And I think that that's the method that you followed, which is absolute genius. And it's all your heart, it's all your soul. And it brings people in because you didn't make it about the exchange and the business. You made it about the person in front of you. And if you give what you can to everybody, you'll get that in return. So, really, what happened is you gave people what you wanted.
Mhm.
You gave the audience what they wanted is answers and
Yeah.
community and purpose. And when you give people honesty and your time, they give you back referrals. They give you back your marketing budget. They give you back all the things that people think that you have to do is create this like amazing team to launch you with. No, what you have to do is give people your time.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably my big takeaway from you today is the way that you got to this multiplier of 7 figures is because you gave people your time and your talent. And
Yeah.
you know what they did for you? They gave you their treasure.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that so much. That was beautiful. And I think, what I'm reminded of too is I call it a value exchange. James has heard me use this before, that it's a value exchange. And, you have to give first. And I think that that's the important thing. We always, there's that whole be, do, have, and we could break that down too. But I always say be, do, have, give, and then, repeat. And I think that giving part is such an important thing. And interesting, I don't think, James, you knew this, but I started my entire practice as a box on the wall.
I didn't.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird? I think that's super weird. So I had donation only for about 2 years, and then I didn't. And it worked well, actually. And I should have just kept with that simplicity. Hey, I want to bring it back to there's a couple things. I know we have a little time left, and I want to talk about something called an HSP. I'm sure you've heard of highly sensitive persons before. If for those of you that are not necessarily, familiar with HSPs, HSP, highly sensitive persons, were defined by Dr. Elaine Aurora. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. There's a great documentary, I think it's great anyway, on Netflix called "Sensitive: The Untold Story." I love it anyway, but Alanis Morissette is in it, and I'm a huge Alanis Morissette fan. And I, so just take that too. But Rachel and I both have taken Dr. Aurora's, HSP quiz or whatever that is online, and we score really, really high. How does this factor into, resetting the nervous system, primal trust, and then we'll take this into like vagal nerve regulation if we have time.
Yeah. I remember a practitioner when I was really sick early on, he said, well, you're one of those canaries in the coal mines, which means you're an HSP and you're showing the collective what isn't good for us. Your body, you're a litmus test as to is this health promoting or health draining? And I don't know why some of us sign up for that calling, and maybe it's a product of trauma, maybe it's a product of who knows what, but I definitely know that I feel like my body is a barometer for truth. It's a barometer for sovereignty versus disempowerment. It's a barometer for what serves and what doesn't. And my body reacts. And I've learned to partner with that. And whereas before I was like, gosh, my body feels cursed, it actually just doesn't let me go against myself. Whereas my family lineage, all my ancestors to my current day, they could go against themselves. They could be overfunctioners. They could be people pleasers, and their bodies function. For whatever reason, some of us, I feel like, have this more of a calling of like showing what the body actually is experiencing when we are out of alignment. And so I think that it's sort of, and because of that, look at what I've created. I've created this worldwide movement by using my body as a barometer of what's true and healthy and life promoting and what's not. And so I've used it for good. And I think that I'm creating ripples of change in the medical system because of it. And we all have that opportunity to be like the canary that's actually, yelling and being like, this actually isn't health promoting. And here's how I'm going to show up differently. And then giving a permission field to others to do it differently. Like James just did. Hey, I'm giving you all a permission field to not actually email until noon. Now that's in the collective. It's in the collective. And that's what we need to do, is use these canaries to create a new, a new way, and not have it be, again, the victim of it, but the way shower of
Mm.
a new way of living.
I think that's super interesting. And I really do want to get into what we can do about it. Because I think, again, with the clients that, I think that we see, I don't know, maybe they're all HSPs. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a certain type of person that's attracted to the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
Um, that said, I want to talk before what I really want to talk about is polyvagal theory. I'm going to put that word out there, but I also know that we need to lead up to that word. As James would say, we got to back up to understand what we're even talking about. So, can you walk us through polyvagal theory, which you mentioned earlier in the show, and a little bit around vagus nerve regulation, and then we'll get into some controversy around that. I'm going to turn right over to you.
Great. Polyvagal theory was coined by Dr. Stephen Porges, and he studied the way that the nervous system responds in different ways. He described that sometimes the nervous system is in more of a connected and calm response where we're socially engaged and we're able to have eye contact. We're feeling like safe in our body. We're not like crawling out of our skin. We're like willing to be with others. There's another nervous system response where we're often in fight or flight, where we're maybe feeling anxious, or we're wanting to get away, or wanting to fight something, and by being angry, or just frankly like unable to sleep and having sort of racing thoughts. And then he describes another stage, another way that the nervous system responds, which is like a shutdown feeling, and a collapsed and hopeless. And then there's always all of these nuanced responses in between, something called freeze, which is sort of this, like you've got one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, and your system is wired but tired. There is play, which is like being connected socially, but also a little bit in sympathetic, which is activated because play is activity. And so I use polyvagal theory to help my clients map what the state of their nervous system is right here and now. And we use that, and that's important. Remember how I was describing, you have to start to develop somatic discernment and interoception of, of where you're at, so that you can make conscious choices of what you need, what your needs are, and how to handle this moment. So, for example, if I've just had an activating discussion with a friend or a partner or whatever, and I'm feeling surges of energy, it is not to my benefit of my body to suppress it and numb out on the computer and stay still. When I get in touch with that activation state, my body wants to move. Maybe I'm angry, maybe I'm feeling afraid. I need to actually get up and move the energy so that my nervous system can come back into homeostasis. When I go from that activating discussion right to the computer and numbing out, that energy actually gets stuck in my body, and I'm more likely to wake up at 2 a.m. with racing thoughts, where the energy is finally trying to complete itself from the 4 p.m. conversation that was activating that I numbed out with. That's just an example. So I teach people how to map the state of their nervous system to help them discern which tool to use when, or what type of release the body is asking for, because we've gotten out of our instinct of how to respond to our body.
I've never heard it explained like that so succinctly, and I truly appreciate it. I think that somatic discernment, just how are we feeling in our bodies, this vessel that we live in, how do we feel, is, I don't know if it's a lost art, but nobody taught me that. If anything, it was, suppress your feelings and, put on a smiley face, put on the mask, and just keep going. And I find it interesting that, like, it's such a foundational place to start. How do I feel right now? And then when you said, man, if I just had a stimulating conversation, whatever that means, probably not good to go sit down and try to crank out a spreadsheet or something like that. I mean, get that chemistry out. And we talked about adrenal hormones earlier, and the cortisols, and we also have epinephrine, norepinephrine, all this stuff. I mean, movement is what really lowers those chemicals in our body. Basically burning through it. I say burn it through the catecholamines. I think that's brilliant. But yeah, we're not taught the skill of somatic discernment, and nor what to do. And then also what came to mind, and James, I saw you, your hand too. What also came to mind is that I'm not sure that we're taught to even be comfortable in our bodies anymore. And I'm not sure exactly. I know what I mean, but I'm not sure I'm saying what I mean the right way. it's like we want to avoid it. Like we want, I mean, and that's probably where the dopamine hits come in, and all the numbing effects. Like I don't want to deal with my body. I don't want to deal with the way I feel. So it's just interesting. James, go ahead. Sorry.
Well,
Thank you, by the way.
Well, and I think those were some good builders for people to understand. But I don't think it was the real answers that we're looking for. I'm more interested in this idea of what you say you are a lot, Dr. Jason. You're a functional medicine practitioner. And I believe, Dr. Kat, you also do something in that realm. Because we've seen where people come from and how they get to you. That's why I was curious how people find you. Because my curiosity sparks somebody else's answers. And I think that that's what makes the magic between Dr. Jason and I. Is I'm not a doctor. I'm just a really curious guy that can frame ideas that nobody else can. And I can bring the greatness of others out. So I guess this question is for both of you. Why is functional medicine becoming more mainstream than ever before?
Wow.
And that I think that hits home for where we need to take the rest of today's episode. Because why is functional medicine becoming the more mainstream choice? And I know that I never asked you this before either, Dr. Jason. How do most people find you? I know you've written a bestseller book, and I know that you probably are highly referred. But back to that like baseline. Why is functional medicine becoming more mainstream? Wow. I'm going to give it to Dr. Kat first, because I'll let you clean up Dr. Jason. So why Kat? Why is functional medicine becoming more mainstream?
When you get enough doors slammed in your face, you look elsewhere. And functional medicine is an open door to these people. And they're starting to I feel like our highest like client practitioner referral base are functional doctors, because they understand that the motherboard, the nervous system, needs to be part of the protocol generally. And so they're willing to work with the canaries. Like it's the willingness and the seeing them and the holding space for them, because you're getting the multi-systemic issue that's in front of you, instead of like, you don't fit my algorithm of my, rheumatology or neurology or, gastroenterology. When these people don't fit the algorithm, the door is slammed, and functional medicine doesn't have the same algorithm. So it's beautiful. It wasn't really a space that was open much when I was sick. It wasn't. And what it was still like, it was a hybrid model. They definitely weren't talking about nervous system like this 10 years ago. And so it's a really exciting time. And I also still feel that in some ways the system, my personal opinion, can keep the power outside of the patient, which is where I have my beef with functional medicine, in that I wish that doctors would say, you're okay, you've come to me with this illness. Here's what we found. Here's what the lab test shows. Your job is your home physical therapy of your nervous system. My job is to optimize the body function. And I know that I can't give you these intensive detox protocols when you are in such a fight and flight response that it's going to waste your time and money. So I really hope that the conversation between the nervous system world and functional world, and that's really my goal with my practitioner program, is training them of like when to be layering in detox from our perspective, and killers and binders and things like that, so that getting better faster actually happens, where they're not spending so much money before they've even laid the foundation of getting their vagus nerve toned and their limbic system dialed down and slightly out of that cell danger response. So so both things are true. The functional medicine is a doors open model. And there's some discernment on timing and protocols that I still see needing to happen in the field.
Amen.
Jason, I want you to jump in on this too, and then I have a follow-up question.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Short on time.
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure if I said this in the green room or earlier in the episode, but I've been doing this for 26 years. I have 3 doctorate degrees, a master's degree, and 3 board certifications, and I've spent my life in internal medicine for the most part, with a chiropractic philosophy of universal intelligence coursing through us in an innate intelligence. and helping that express in the best way that it can. That said, the longer I do my job, 2.5 decades plus now, the more I realize it's the motherboard. I mean, it really is. And so, I can talk to you about from our perspective, and I'll answer your question, James. Our business right now changes occasionally. Is called Radiant Life, Radiant Health. And we renamed it from Epic Functional Medicine for a few reasons. But Epic was an acronym that stood for empowering the person to impact the community. And the way that we empower people is not just I run some labs and tell you what's going on. We actually created an entire coursework where we actually teach people to be their own best doctors, what the labs actually mean, how to read their own labs, the way, my 26 years of experience, what I would do if they had labs that were off or not in the optimal functional range. My goal is to empower every one of our clients to literally be their own best doctor, to not rely on me or anyone else. Part of that is working with the 5 pillars that were in my book that James mentioned. Thank you for mentioning it. The Epic 5 plan, which are hydration with electrolytes, a proper diet of whole foods for the most part, protein forward, movement every day, as we've been discussing, nervous system regulation, and then sleep patterns. If I had to rewrite that book, I'd have a 6th one. It'd be the Epic 6 plan with community, a healing community that you're surrounded by. I think it's important. But, my version of functional medicine is maybe a little different than you go to the doctor and you talk to a doctor and get some stuff done and they tell you what to do. And then you come back a few months later or a few weeks later or whatever it is. Our entire program is built on monthly subscriptions and kind of a carte blanche with a monthly subscription where we're educating our clients on how to be their own best doctor. As far as why did we change our name away from Epic Functional Medicine to Radiant Life, Radiant Health? I think there's problems in the functional medicine world. I mean, I think that I'm an IFMCP through the Institute for Functional Medicine. I was an early adopter. I mean, I actually was enrolled in their postdoc before I was even a doc. So I was doing their education. I've done their board certification. I've done the case studies and the testing, and I mean the whole thing. And over the 2.5 decades, I've noticed that what I would call restoring people's function has been watered down to actually more of a hybrid model that's being led by conventional medical practitioners that are frustrated within their own system because dollars are dwindling. And so they're looking for more dollars and going over to a functional medicine model where people are paying out of pocket and they don't have to deal with insurance, but they're still it's like they're still prescribing drugs and telling people to sort of meditate. And that's where functional medicine has gone. And I've had words with the IFM. I'm very public about it. I got a personal email from their director within the last month, wanting to discuss this with me. I invited her onto the show to discuss it, and no response yet. But I have issues with functional medicine because I do not think it's the end all of all things. I do think for what Dr. Kat's doing, Dr. Kat, what you're doing, there probably are those practitioners that are like, I figured out what I can figure out, but it's really resetting the motherboard. It's really supporting that motherboard. And those are the practitioners that I think the people out there listening need to be looking for. I really think that those are the people that they need to be looking for. They're not, and I guess what I'm saying is functional medicine, in my opinion, has been polluted. It's been watered down, and functional medicine is not going to solve your issues if you're not working on what I would call the 6 pillars, one of them being nervous system regulation. So that's my 2 cents, James. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, I appreciate both takes because I think that there's something for everybody in those answers. And they get a chance to understand the discipline of how you become who you are and why you do what you do, which I think is really cool. And I think that the people watching and listening that gets to this far in this Get Better Faster episode, they're going to walk away and be like, I need to decide who I'm going to let give me advice now. And now I got to decide how I give myself advice. So it's a huge introspective cycle that we went on. And that's why I kind of wanted to ask both of you guys why it's becoming more mainstream for functional medicine to be the go-to. And I think Dr. Kat gave a great analysis is it's an open door, but I'm going to close the door. And me saying that means this. I love chiropractic. Anybody that knows me knows that. But they'll also know that I don't want drugs in chiropractic. They'll also know that I don't want chiropractors with prescription rights. They'll also know that I believe that chiropractic has to have philosophy, and that if you sell philosophy out, you sell the profession out. So I believe that the tenets of the practitioner really matter when it comes to the functional medicine discipline. And I really believe that if we go back down to the philosophy, we have to formulate a philosophy as like a code of ethics and some guidelines for how people become functional medicine practitioners. And the ones that want to moonlight as the evil empire and wave the flag to say, I want your cash. And I'm going to do everything that I did in my old model, but I'm just going to teach you guys some meditation and some breath work, but you still get prescription rights. I think we just have to have a different hierarchy of the practitioner out there to when people know when they're going to investigate, I have this problem, who am I going to go trust? They know that this person is not a chiropractor prescribing drugs. And I call that the wolves in sheep's clothing. Is if we change the model, then we change the discipline, then we change the outcome. And if we have a bunch of overlords out there that aren't getting the results that they were getting in their old model, coming into a different model to infiltrate it and bring their bad practices into it because they think that they need that, then the end user fails too.
Yeah.
So we have to have trust and ethics and reliability in the person that's guiding us. And I think that that's back to me. I'll die on the hill. I don't ever want to see drugs in chiropractic because I think that that's what makes the profession so damn beautiful, is because it doesn't add anything into the body. It simply removes the interference. And I think if we came from that ethical standpoint of functional medicine doctors and practitioners, we'd have a very sound future for that profession. And Dr. Jason wouldn't want to bring on the person and have an interview with them about how they've potentially have some issues in the model. And I think that that's a huge expose moment for us, is to say, look, we got to play with a good ethical foundation to where this open door remains an open door. And that's a real ethical stance. And I know that I've said a lot there, so I'm going to pass it back to Dr. Jason because I see he's ready to go. But
I just want to say amen.
I'm thankful for sharing that.
Yeah, no, I just want to say amen. And what you're saying about chiropractic, I feel about functional medicine. I mean, the body was not born with the deficiency of a drug. There are, you don't need a drug to restore function. I mean, anybody that's actually been doing functional medicine knows that. I mean, people that are doing functional medicine and diagnosing SIBO and throwing rifaximin at it every 3 months, I mean, that's not functional medicine. That's just a different diagnosis. You know, I mean, anyway, I don't need to go down that road. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. I'm all for, there should be no drugs in functional medicine. I'm a purist for sure, probably because my first doctorate degree was in chiropractic. And I was, indoctrinated, as we said, with that philosophy. And I've carried it through with my naturopathy training, my health sciences training, and even in my journalistic training. So I appreciate that. I also wanted to say, I know we're coming up on time here. I also wanted to just say, for those of you that have listened, I should have said this earlier in the show. I had like 3 opportunities, and I got so carried away with talking to Dr. Cat, and so excited. But for our listeners that want to connect with Primal Trust, that want to connect with Dr. Cat, you can go to this episode page at the getbetterfasterpodcast.com, or I'm sorry, it's getbetterfasterpodcast.com. And we're going to have, all the stuff that you need to connect with her, and links to everything that you need. So, I mean, she's amazing, and her program's amazing. And I want to say that again, not just as a host on the show, and thank you again for being on the show, but literally, as I can tell you that your Primal Trust training elevated our lives so much, and our relationship so much, that, I just want to say thank you. Like, I mean, thanks for being on the show, but genuinely from my heart, thank you for where Rachel and I are as human beings and as a couple. I attribute a lot to Primal Trust. I won't name names, but I will also say we've also gone through other programs. I won't name them, but we've gone through every limbic system program, system retraining program that you can think of. And it's Primal Trust is the one that really was the one. So I just appreciate you so much, Dr. Cat, and I appreciate you being on the show. And I want to say thank you. And I know we're out of time. And Dr. Rachel is over here telling me, you guys did not get into the controversy of polyvagal theory. You guys did. I mean, she's got a list. So I would like to just preemptively invite you on for part 2. We'll continue the discussion. I know we're out of time today. But thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your time, and thank you for changing my life. And my wife's life, which is even more important in my life. So thank you.
And I know that Jason's already giving like the open door. I like that I can come back full circle and use the analogous conversation that we've had most of the day. But is there anything that you hope that I would have asked you today that we didn't touch on that we'd like to have you close out with today?
Oh my gosh. I think that there is such an overload of information of what we need to do to get well. I kind of want to talk about just real quick that the amount of biohacks available to us and the amount of tools, the amount of things can be so just, I don't even know where to start. And it's a whole new problem. It's a whole new problem. When I
Mhm.
started Primal Trust, this wasn't the case. It was like, oh, I'm just going to focus on my nervous system work. People can't even complete my program because they're getting layered with so many, things for their nervous system, for their health that they can't even finish. So I want to tell people, pick one thing that resonates and just complete that thing.
Mm.
Whether it's like, I'm just going to work on maybe spending time in the sauna for a month and I'm just going to do that. And that's my one thing. Or maybe it is a Primal Trust program, or maybe it's some type of breath work. Pick the one thing, because the overload of doing all of the things, especially at the beginning, it's literally taking away your free time. So pick the one thing and then try to spend a good solid chunk of time without your phone, without anything, just out in nature. So basically that just clean slate time to feel what's ever there, to get in touch with how you're actually perceiving your life and what you're feeling. That alone, like if you're going to do anything, spend an hour a day outside by yourself with
Yes.
nothing. Like nervous system 101, which we have lost. Our kids are not outside, we're not
Yes.
outside. That is where you start, and then just pick one thing. Don't
Yes.
overdo it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Amen.
That I'm going to summarize that. Go get lost.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid that you can't find your way home. Okay.
Love it.
Like, go get lost and don't be afraid. And I think that those are nervous system regulators right there. You don't have to be tethered to somebody or an email or a text message or feel like you have to show up for somebody when they want you to. So I'm back to my own self is like, hey, if people push me to the edge, I'm just there. They don't get invited anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a good takeaway for people too, is just to know you have limits and limits for yourself and limits for others. But I appreciate you being on with us today, Dr. Kat. This conversation has been absolutely extraordinary. I'm sure so many of our listeners are just like, wow, they did another instant classic. And for our listeners who are fighting chronic illnesses, like we talked about, I don't even believe like we got beneath the tip of the iceberg, but autoimmune challenges, traumas, earmark some of these things, Dr. Jason, so we make sure we go into.
I got it. I have them. Yep.
I know Rachel said that, hey, you got to go into some of these things, but the traumas of life, or people that simply feel like their bodies are betraying them. I know that was something we touched on a little bit today. But what Dr. Kat has put into her Primal Trust program is real. I know Dr. Jason's testimony is the end for him and his wife, Rachel, who's the executive producer of the show. It's science backed, compassion driven, and there's an alternative system out there when so many people have been let down, which I know we've really focused on that conversation today. But the daily Regulate 40-day program is something that I touched on a little bit. And, one of the things I wanted to let people know is it's a simple low time commitment daily exercise that she teaches you, just maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day. And the data speaks for itself. That's why I was really asking why people aren't successful with it when it's got a high success rate. And I wanted her to actually tell you guys what that truth was. But participants who are barely functioning, improving to 87% in just 3 months, that's not a typo. And that's really, if you guys want to go back and listen to this episode again, you'll see how I unpack that with her. But remember that nobody's coming to save you. But what Dr. Kat and Dr. Jason today discussed with me is it's proving every day that you can absolutely save yourself. And you just have to go get lost and leave your cell phone and realize that you can trust yourself to get home safe. And but when you have the right tools and the right community, It doesn't have to be a one-to-one with this bloated expense. It can be a one-to-many system that you fill the Epic 6 plan, which is you have community now. And Dr. Kat, thank you again from the bottom of our hearts for the work that you're doing and for joining us today. And to our incredible Get Better Faster Nation, thank you for tuning in. The best way you can show your support, I always say this, is very simple. Share this episode with somebody who needs to hear this. Like, don't put your cell phone down right now and go get lost. Like, before you put your phone down, hit share. Share this episode. Comment something that you have a question for either of these practitioners that you need help with, so we can double back on this when we do our next interview with Dr. Kat. And subscribe so you never miss an episode and get all the behind the scenes action we've got coming your way. If you've been asking yourself, how do I connect with Dr. Jason and his functional medicine team, just head over to the getbetterfasterpodcast.com and we'll get you taken care of. And I always close out saying this. We've got more incredible guests lined up who are going to blow your mind with real life experiences. So until next time, keep questioning everything and keep getting better faster. Dr. Kat, Dr. Jason, Dr. Rachel, thank you so much. It's another powerful episode of the Get Better Faster podcast.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Dr. Kat. Thank you, Rachel. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Love y'all.
Bye for now.